Armadillo here again with another fix. This time we have Toyworld's burden. Now this guy, as you can see, he's standing straight up and he's not falling over backwards. How could that be? Well, I've added some heel spurs. Now, these are pretty cool. I'm going to show you how to make them yourself. They actually transform and just use parts that he already had in his heel. So you're left with something that's, I think, pretty cool. And it gets the job done. I know there is a fix coming, an add-on kit or something that adds some big slippers that he puts on, but I was looking for something a little nicer than that, and I think this gets the job done in a better way. So it's not just the heel spurs, there's actually issues with two of the joints as well. They needed to be stiffened up, and I'll show you how to do that in this video as well. Okay, let's start by showing you what tools you'll need and parts. You'll need some crazy glue, screwdriver, Phillips. You will need a sharp utility knife, hobby knife, carpet knife, olfa, something of the sort. It's got to be sharp and thin. A file of some sort. I'm using the one off of my Swiss Army knife. You'll need a small hobby drill. These you can get from Gamer's Workshop in the mall. They're really good if you're into fixing plastic toys and things, because you can drill tiny holes, put pins in, and then glue the pieces together for strength. Or in this situation, we'll be using the drill just to make a small hole for a pin. And it comes with lots of drill bits too. You'll need a pin that you don't mind sacrificing. You'll need a couple of them actually. So I just used this style here, push pin. And you'll need some sort of rubberized plastic. So I found mine from this Soundwave from Prime, I believe he was from. He was in my mod bin here, and he has like all the black parts are flexible rubberized plastic. So I used his fins here in the mod for burden. So hopefully you have one of these kicking around and you can use it, or try and find something similar. That's all you'll need to fix them up. So to get started with the mod itself, undo the 4 screws on the bottom of each foot. Okay, then this whole black bottom part of his foot will pop out like that. So what I did is I cut out this section of this piece using the sharp blade. So I'll just put it back in here to show you where I cut along. You'll see there's an angled bit right there. So I cut straight across there, and I cut along the seam there. Now you don't want to use a saw or anything bigger than a knife like this, because you want to keep as much of this plastic as you can. So I just went along there over and over and over and over and over again until the plastic was, and I did it from the other side as well, until the plastic was weak enough to come off. So you end up with a piece on each foot that you can use as the heel spur. Okay, so once you have it out, you can clean it up a little bit with some sandpaper on the parts that don't show on the sides, just to make it look nice and clean. Do the same on here. So what I did on the bottom here is I crazy glued a piece of that rubber just so it has something to support once when the heel spur comes back into its original spot. If you don't have that, it tends to just go right through and into this cavity in here, and it's hard to get out. So just glue a piece of plastic to the bottom there, like I've done, so a bit of it's exposed there. To get the heel spur on the bottom, you'll also need to take your file and make room for it. So see that gap right there? I took my file and carefully, just with a few passes, you gotta do it a few times just to make sure you don't go too deep. You don't want to take off too much material. You just want enough material for the heel spur to come around and sit flat. If you go too much, then this ends up over here and it defeats the purpose of the heel spur. So just file out enough, the exact thickness of this new heel spur. So once you've done that, you can actually mount your pin. And how you do that is I assembled it back together, just roughly, to make sure that I got the heel spur in the right spot. So you assemble it back together, you set this in here, and I drilled using this into right through there, and the position of this pin needs to be right. So you don't want it too close to the edge or it'll just pull right through. You don't want it too far in, or the heel spur when it's transformed like this won't look right. So I drilled through here, making sure I got all the way through and into the other side, but not all the way through. You don't need to go all the way through, and you can keep this side looking pristine. So once you have it drilled, you take your pin and you make sure it goes all the way in as far as you've drilled, and then you just wiggle it back and forth like this and it'll break. And then you'll be left with a little bit right here, and you can just take the side of your knife and press hard, and it'll seat the rest of the pin into the plastic that you hadn't drilled yet, and it'll be a nice permanent fix that you can't see. Okay, so once you've got your heel spur in the right position, I added these two rubber pieces that I just glued on. I cut them to the same width as this heel spur, and it adds some grip to the heel spur. Okay, so after you've got your heel spur in, you'll notice that he still wants to fall backwards, and that's because there's two joints in here in his feet that aren't toleranced right. You'll see here this main one where it looks like it should be ratcheted. They never put anything in here for the ratchet, so it's just too easy for the robot to fall backwards. So what I did is I took the same rubber from that sound wave, I cut a piece about that long, and I stuffed it into the hole there with glue just on the bottom side of the rubber, not this side pointing up towards the ratchet. So once I stuffed it through, I could pull on it from this side. Then I took my knife and I just trimmed it along here to make it a nice clean look. Same with on the other side. I just trimmed off the excess rubber. And if you get the right thickness of rubber, where it's a little bigger than the space, you end up with a nice stiff joint there. Okay, so that fixes that joint. Now this joint, you fix by adding a small piece of rubber right here. So you'll see there's this circle piece here, and I added the rubber right there, and that runs along that connector, or that joint I should say. So that when it's screwed in place, the rubber is putting tension on here. Hope that's clear. So the little rubber piece is right in there, it runs along that piece of plastic there. So with those three things done to the feet, it fixes him completely, and you can pose most poses now. So I'll put them back together. To do that, you just make sure your heel spur is up. There we go, and just put the screws back in. And the fourth one, you don't want to make sure this one's good and tight for sure, because this is the one that's putting the main pressure on that foot joint, to make sure that it doesn't fall backwards on you. So now, there we go. So let's see how it worked. So to get the heel spur out, I have a little lip left on mine. Yours might be nice and flush, mine wasn't. But if yours is nice and flush and you're having trouble getting it out with your fingernail, you can just push with your fingernail on the back, and that pops out the heel spur. Now when these probably aren't the strongest pieces, it's just a small pin. So when you're transforming them back and forth and such, just try and make sure you put the heel spurs in where they're nice and safe before you start playing or fiddling with them. Alright, there we go. It's pretty good now. Should be able to do most poses. Even with his arms back. Remember before you'd have to make sure his arms were forward to help balance him. But anyway, good luck with your mod. I hope you enjoyed this, and I'll be back with more videos soon. Take care.